What's that irritating buzz I hear? What's crawling across my television set? Waiter, what's this floating in my soup? Unless you live in polar regions, the answer to all these questions, sooner or later, is inevitably the same: the common fly. Before I even got to Iraq, I was hearing story after story of how abundant the flies were. People were saying how terribly annoying they were since they were everywhere. I was also hearing stories of what I hoped to be rumors of how flies pooped and vomited every time they landed. Once I arrived in Iraq, I found the stories to be true. The flies were everywhere. They were in my hair, the bathrooms, my workspace, and even in my dining facility in my food. Seeing their abundance and now truly understanding how annoying they were, it got me wondering. Why were there so many of them? Does the fly actually serve a purpose? And were the rumors about flies pooping and vomiting everywhere true? So I started researching them and found many interesting and yet disgusting facts about these creatures. The facts I found are probably why many people are repulsed by and avoid flies. Over the next 6 minutes, I will give you many reasons why disgusting accurately describes this creature. I am going to share with you the life cycle a fly nourishes, the garbage in, garbage out diet it has, and why and how you can keep your distance from these filthy and annoying creatures. First, we will look at the relatively short and yet extensive life cycle of a fly. The fly life cycle closely mirrors that of most insects. A basic cycle that begins with an egg, then develops through larva phase, a pupa phase, and finally into an adult. After the male housefly chases down and fertilizes a female counterpart, she's ready to lay her eggs. After being fertilized, the female will lay 75 to 150 eggs in a suitable environment, such as decomposing food and garbage, animal excrement, or other decomposing organic materials. This can occur several times throughout a female fly's life. Within a day, larvae, also known as maggots, hatch from the eggs and live and feed off the organic materials they were laid in. The maggots are a pale whitish color, 3 to 9 millimeters long, thinner at the mouth end, and do not have legs. They stay as maggots for about a week while going through 3 molting stages and increasing their size to about 7 to 12 millimeters. Once the maggots are done growing, they turn into pupa. As pupa, they are a reddish or brown color and about 8 millimeters long. This stage generally takes 2 to 6 days, and during it they do not feed since they do not have mouths. From this pupa case emerges an adult fly. The adult fly lives anywhere from 2 weeks to a month. Development from egg to an adult can be completed in about 8 days under optimal conditions, and up to 12 generations can occur each summer. Optimal conditions for fly growth are in a very hot climates. This, along with how quickly flies can develop, explain why flies are so prevalent here in Iraq. While flying, flies are always sniffing and looking for food. Once a housefly smells something interesting and tastes it with its feet, the time has come to gobble up the delicious food. If the male in question happens to be liquid already, then the task is easy. Since the housefly's mouth parts are designed like a sponge, or like a suction tube, it's just a matter of time of turning on the suction in order to ingest liquefied food. The food then goes straight into the fly's stomach. Solid food is slightly more difficult for a fly, since they have no teeth and cannot bite or chew. So if a fly tries to eat something more solid, like a grain of sugar or dry blood, they must employ a different tactic. First, the fly scrubs the dry food with bristles at the end of its mouth, which frees up the food particles. The second step can be compared to what happens when you add hot water to instant oatmeal. Only instead of hot water, the housefly adds a mixture of saliva and digestive juices. The fly vomits saliva and digestive material onto its meal, and after a few seconds pass, the juices break down the food and the fly sucks everything back up. If the vomit can't adequately break down food enough for it to pass into the stomach, the fly then sends this food down a different tube into an inner sac. The fly may pass this dissolving food multiple times between the inner sac and its mouth, regularly applying fresh saliva. Eventually, the liquefied meal will be ready to send down to the stomach. If all of this vomiting sounds unhygienic, that's because it is. If the fly chooses to feed on what you are eating, it may wind up regurgitating portions of a previous meal as well. Along with regurgitating food, flies may carry as many as 6 million bacteria in its feet. A fly walking and vomiting on or near you or on your food only multiplies your risk of disease. If it has recently walked in poop or anything else gross that you can think of, it may even transmit pathogens which can cause diseases such as typhoid, cholera, and tuberculosis. Along with diseases, it can also transmit hepatitis and eggs of parasitic worms. Both of these facts are reasons why you should keep houseflies away from your food. Now that you know the facts of why a fly is disgusting, I will share with you a few tips on how to keep this repulsive creature away. Fly control can be divided into two main areas, prevention and eradication. Both are aimed at some point in the life cycle of the fly. The key to managing the prevention of flies is sanitation. Make sure there is nothing in or around your home for flies to eat or lay their eggs in. Remove garbage at least twice per week and keep the trash cans as far away from your house as possible. The cans should have a tight-fitting lid and make sure to keep them closed. If you have animals, be diligent and pick up their poop on a regular basis. While doing this, keep an eye out for dead animals. Flies love both poop and dead things. Keep your doors and windows closed and make sure they seal all the way. Be sure to look around cables, wires, and plumbing that enter the house too. It's not a bad idea to add weather stripping to any of these areas with tiny cracks. After all, if there's enough space for a fly to crawl through, it will. In your house, keep the kitchen clean of dirty dishes and free of bits of food or spills. Minimize the amount of fruit lying out and keep all the food in containers with tight-fitting lids. Even if you apply these prevention methods, it is possible flies will still exist, so it is important to know of safe and proper ways of getting rid of flies. If you're a person who spends a lot of time outside, personal insect repellents containing DEET work well at repelling the flies. For inside your home, fly swatters work well for hunting down any particular annoying flies that may have made it into your space. Fly paper can also be used, but can be seen as unsightly. For both outside and inside use, the UV bug lights or bug zappers work great. They use an ultraviolet light to attract the fly to an electrified grid where they are promptly charred out of existence by a higher voltage current. Not only do they work well, but they are cool too. There is an option of chemical control, but this should mainly be used in eradicating flies from large areas. Plus, it's the least effective and the most expensive. I'm guessing you never knew this much about flies and possibly never wanted to. But now that you do know of a fly's extensive life cycle and its gross eating habits, remember that a fly in Iraq is much the same as a fly in the States. Both can reproduce quickly, carry diseases, and even regurgitate their food onto your food. These very reasons are why people around the world are repulsed by and avoid flies, and definitely why disgusting accurately describes these creatures. So keep your food covered and the dog dung picked up, and you too can live a life without flies.